Hello everyone, welcome to Synthesis IAS Academy, a place where blend of ideas take place. About me, I am Sandeep Bhushan and my credentials are I have 10 years of teaching experience for civil services and I take up issue based current affairs. And this session will certainly help you to crack prelims as well as mains examination, because throughout my session I would be emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases, and these keywords and the key phrases will certainly help you to identify the factual, analytical and conceptual questions for the prelims 2021, and by imbibing the keywords and the key phrases in your answer writing for the mains examination, your answers would be precise and concise, and thereby you will score higher marks in the mains 2020. So my session will certainly guide you to crack mains 2020 and also the prelims and mains 2021. So do follow my entire session and be benefited by my lecture, that is issue based current affairs. And also do not forget to subscribe. Please hit the bell button for further notification. And today's topic is the multilateralism in the Cold War. So we will focus what is multilateralism and also the Cold War and the multilateralism in the new Cold War. So while we are focusing, or while we'll be discussing in regards to the multilateralism in the new Cold War, I would be taking up the subtopics of what is multilateralism, what is Cold War, and the multilateralism in the new Cold War, and also the clash of values in the new Cold War, and which are the areas wherein there are non-cohesive form, and what are the various templates wherein India has to follow in the multilateralism in the new Cold War. And then we will also conclude it that how India can be a part of the entire world, that it can take up the new multilateralism at a greater heights during the time of the new Cold War. And now we'll focus at what is multilateralism. So certainly we need to understand first, before we get into the multilateralism in the Cold War, we need to know what is multilateralism. So multilateralism is a process of organizing relations. It is a process of organizing relations between groups of 3 or more states. So when you have gone ahead with organizing a relation, and this relation has to have a certain qualitative elements or certain qualitative principles, so that the principles or the elements will certainly shape the character of the institutions. So in the multilateralism, what is very important is you need to have the institutions with a quality or qualitative elements and the principles which shape the exact institutions which is required for the entire world. And these principles have to be indivisibility, means that it has to be non-separable for the interest of any other participants or any other country among the institutions. And these principles have to have a commitment, so that to diffuse any kind of reciprocity, that is there should be an exchanging of views among the participants, and also there has to be, the principles have to be based on the system of dispute settlement. So if there is any kind of dispute which arises, so it has to be settled, and that has to be by a process called as a system of dispute settlement. And these all are part of the mode of behavior for the qualitative elements of the principles wherein it will shape a character of an institutions, and that is what it is, organizing relations between 3 or more states, part of the multilateralism. And definitely if you look at the multilateralism, it has a long history, and it is principally associated with the era after the World War II. So focusing on the multilateralism, it would be pertaining or associated with the era which is after the World War II, and definitely which there was a burgeoning, that is there was a growing and increase or flourish of multilateral agreements which have led to the United Nations, which was led primarily by the United States. So that we had various organizations, international organizations, United Nations organization, and also we had the principles of multilateralism were strongly embodied in few of the trading organizations called as World Trade Organization, and also in regards to the security, when we are talking about the multilateralism principles were imbibed in the NATO, that is North Atlantic Treaty Organizations. And apart from that, there are various environmental institutions wherein the principles of multilateralism have also been embodied, and they were also imbibed, so that a concept of multilateralism has existed after the World War II era. So now we have looked at what is multilateralism, and now we will focus at the Cold War. So definitely when we are talking about the Cold War, this has also developed a rivalry after the World War II, and that was between the United States and the Soviet Union. So it is between the United States and Soviet Union, and also their respective allies. That means the countries which were supporting either United States or Soviet Union, they had the rivalry, and that was open. It was very open, but it was a restricted rivalry. This is very crucial. I mean, the point what we are talking about, it was open but yet restricted rivalry between the US and its allies, and then Soviet Union and its respective allies. So in regards to the Cold War, it was waged on, so certainly the rivalry was waged on political, economical and propaganda fronts, and that has had a very limited recourse on the weapons. So it is not having a kind of warlike situation wherein you are certainly getting into the mode of using the weapons. No, it is not a war effectively, but it is a Cold War wherein it is waged on the political, economic and propaganda based, but not really using the weapons. And the term, the Cold War term, was first used by the English writer called as George Orwell, by the English writer, Britisher, by the George Orwell, and it was published in an article in the year 1945. But it was first used in a speech by the United States American financier and presidential advisor called as Bernard Baruch, which he had used in a speech while he was delivering in the Columbia, South Carolina in the year 1947. So the word was first used by an English writer in the year 1945, but was used first time in the speech by Bernard Baruch, which was used in the year 1947. And the entire this Cold War has solidified, or it has intensified by 1947-1948. That means when the US started providing aid to the Western Europe, and definitely it was by the Marshall Plan, which US has used, or it has provided the aid to the Western Europe by Marshall Plan, and definitely those countries among the Western Europe have come under the American influence. And then immediately after the Marshall Plan was provided, or it was introduced by the US, the Soviet has openly gone ahead with communist regime in the Eastern Europe. So look at it, it was between the European countries, and it was segregated between the Western Europe and the Eastern Europe, and then Eastern Europe coming under the ambit of the communist regime by the Soviets. So definitely it was an open but yet restricted, and it was just with the political, economic and propaganda fronts, and with a very limited recourse in regards to the usage of the weapons. So we are focused on the multilateralism, and we have also looked at the Cold War. Now we will look at multilateralism in the new Cold War era, or a new Cold War. And if you look at the new Cold War, it is defined by technology and trade. It is not defined by territory. Now in the new Cold War times, it is not at all in regards to pertaining to any kind of territory, but it is only defined by technology and trade, and it is in regards to the non-alignment is a certain option. If you look at, India should now craft a new or a global triumvirate, that is association of the three. So definitely a concept of non-alignment is an uncertain option, but the basic fundamentals of the non-alignment is not just trying to have an inch over the US or in regards to the Soviet Union and now the Russia, but making sure that India should now craft in the multilateralism in the Cold War. They have to craft, or they have to design or come up with a new global triumvirate, this which is an association of the three. So we will look at it, what is that. And definitely there is now in this situation of the multilateralism in the new Cold War, there is a benefit from the global change. So definitely there is a change which is happening, and this change is happening globally, and it is a global change. And during this, or else gradually when the global change is happening, there is a benefit from this global change, and many countries have to go ahead with taking a bold vision and the right strategic choice to take the benefit from the global change. And that is what the multilateralism in the Cold War has given an opportunity to various countries or the developing countries like India to make sure that it takes a bold vision and a right strategic choice to take the benefit of the global change. And definitely, if you look at what the global change is being taken up at this moment, is that definitely India is now chairing the executive board of the World Health Assembly, WHO. So when it is chairing the World Health Assembly, now India can set global response, not only just in regards to the medical issues, but it can also take the benefit of the global change, and by the bold vision and the right strategic choices, it can also influence the multilateralism. No doubt, the United Nations General Assembly has taken place in the month of September 2020, and the theme of the United Nations General Assembly was the future we want. So we are expecting a global change, and definitely there is a change which is happening globally, and for that India has to take a bold vision and the right strategic choice, wherein the theme of the United Nations General Assembly was the future we want. And if we look at it, the future we want, it is in 2020 which has taken up, and further in the after 2020, post 2020, they want the future. The future we want is being the theme. And if you look at now, India joins the United Nations Security Council, that is in the year 2021, and it will also chair the BRICS summit, and in 2022 it will host the G20 summit. And these are all the scenarios which we would focus at the global change. There is a global change happening in the multilateralism in the new Cold War, and in the new Cold War, the multilateralism is the need of the hour. And then the developing country like India can definitely take the benefit of the global change, because India is now chairing the World Health Assembly, and it will also join the United Nations Security Council in the next year, that is 2021, and it will also chair the BRICS summit in the year 2022 and host the G20 also. So all these rare alignment which are taking up are definitely an agenda setting for the global change. So we need to make sure that the multilateralism, the new Cold War, would certainly have a benefit for the developing countries, and especially India has to take a bold vision and the right strategy choice to make sure that India is also providing to the globe that it is a global leader. And definitely, if you look at the non-alignment movement, the online summit which has been taken up in the month of recently, we have seen it in the month of May. Our Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also called for new principles in the international system. So when the developing country like India is also putting forth that there has to be a new principles in the international system, that means India is also wanting a global change, and India is certainly to take the benefit of the global change. And if you look at the new globalization model, now the new globalization model will be based on the humanity, will be based on fairness and equality. So when we are talking about the humanity, fairness and equality, certainly the global change which the entire globe is experiencing has wider support in regards to the humanity, fairness and equality, which is the new globalization model. And that is very, very important, that it is what it is actually experiencing the globe for the first time since 1950. And now, because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation and blessing in disguise, that the many countries are wanting that there has to be humanity, fairness and equality in the new globalization model, because of the global supply chain system which has been badly hit. And because of that, the new globalization model is coming to the forefront. And then definitely India should take the benefit of the changed global context, and India should look upon the re-emergence. That is, India has to show it to the world leaders that it is also projecting as a world leader. It is also in a position to take responsibility in the new Cold War era, that the multilateralism has to revamp, has to resuscitate, so that the unilateral decisions taken by China or US has to be kept aside, and for the benefit of the entire world, the multilateralism the concept has to come at the forefront, and then India has to take its own bold decision and then a new strategic actions, so that it will also make sure that it is re-emerging. And at the time when the China is losing its influence, and there is a lot of hue and cry between US and China which is happening, and definitely now at this situation Asia is again becoming very central to global prosperity. So at this situation, when there is a global change, and in the midst of the global change, Asian continent is again becoming central, and it is definitely having the global prosperity. It is central to the global prosperity. So when it is central to the global prosperity, and the global prosperity is in coordination with the global governance, economy, scientific research, and society in need being reinvented. So all these are the one which are really making it very clear and then obvious that Asia is gaining. Once again, Asia is at the central for the global prosperity. When China is losing its influence, when China has the trade war with US, when there is a kind of security concerns between US and China, definitely India has to take its own stand and then bold vision and then re-emerge as a leader, that it is also making sure that it is a world or global leader, emerging as a global leader. And we should also use this opportunity. That means India should certainly use this opportunity to recover our global thought leadership. So definitely India has to project as a global leader, and then Indian people, or else India as a whole, has to project it has a global thought leadership. And because of our past, that is the Nalanda University astronomical computation, we have the invention of zero, Ayurveda, Buddhism and yoga, and most important is the Ahimsa, which we actually project, and we make sure that there is peace which is restored back in our neighboring countries, and also in the West Asia, or else in the Southeast Asian countries, and further into the Middle East and the Persian Gulf. So we are definitely making sure that we propagate peace, and we are for Ahimsa. So these can make sure that we are re-emerging. And then at the time when China is losing its influence, definitely multilateralism can be taken up by India at the time of the new Cold War. And now we will focus at this subtopic, that is a clash of values. No doubt there is a clash of ideas between China and US. Definitely we have seen that at the World Health Assembly, wherein US was wanting, China was also wanting that the Taiwan and Hong Kong should not be given the due importance in the World Health Assembly. So which really marks that there is the end of multilateralism of the past 70 years. So that means there is unilateral decisions being taken up even at the international organizations. So when the situation is demanding that unilateralism or hegemony is being proved, or hegemony is being imposed by China from different angle perspective and US from different perspective, so it is marking, or it is showing a sign of end of multilateralism. So it is now a global change that India has to take an initiative, that it is re-emerging as a world leader, and then multilateralism is now should be bounced back by the initiative taken up by India. And definitely if you look at the clash of values, another clash of value is the agenda setting role of G7 over UN institutions. And definitely now the challenge is been posed to the WHO, that is in regards to the international organizations, but WHO has ignored the kind of reform or decades which have been taken up by the US, and then it has gone ahead with saying that we will go ahead with what is actually in regards to the pursuit of the aims and objective of the WHO, but not really getting succumbed to the decades or the reforms which the US is wanting in regards to the G7, and then making sure that it has stopped the budgeting to the WHO. So US has implicitly rejected the G20 and the UN Security Council for expansion, and it is wanting an expansion for the G7. Why it wanted an expansion for the G7? So that it wanted to discuss the future of China. It wanted to make sure that it wanted to contain China. It wanted to make sure that the China is been at a lower end, and then it can take the help of India in the Asia, in the Indian Ocean, and in the Indo-Pacific region also, making it very clear that India will have its role, and in this clash of values India can certainly re-emerge and then prove to the world that we are the global leaders, emerging global leaders. And definitely we have seen after the World War II also there was a seismic shift that the UN, I mean within the UN we have seen the newly independent states or the sovereign state were not really consulted by the US, and then in regards to fostering trade, capital, technology, and then in regards to dependence, or they have ignored the socio-economic development even after the World War II within the United Nations organization. And the same kind of unilateral or hegemony is being projected even by USA most of the times, and also China is also taking up the same kind of intention of hegemony even in regards to the economic development, or making it that it wanted to expand economically. So in this midst, when there is a global change which is taking place, it is very imperative that India has to take a re-emergence model and then show it to the world that it is a growing global leader, re-emerging global leader. And then certainly the socio and economic rights have emerged as an important political and procedural rights by the multilateralism in the New World War times. And then the China's President Xi Jinping has endorsed the UN resolution. Look at it. Now these are all the clash of violence, that is clash of values, wherein we are making it very clear that US and China are definitely at loggerheads. And then now what is required and what is that is emerging is the social and economic rights. So which are the rights which are emerging? They are social and economic rights, and this to be important as political and procedural rights. So social and economic rights to be as important as political and procedural rights. So there is a new change what we have spoken about, that is the global change which is taking up, is the social and economic rights have emerged to be as important as it was earlier, that is the political and procedural rights. And definitely China has endorsed the UN resolution in regards to the equitable access to the new vaccine which will come up in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So the China or Chinese President Xi Jinping is very much clear in regards to the equitable access. So it is in regards to the social and economic rights, in regards to the equitable access to the vaccine. That is what is emerging, which is as important to the political and procedural rights. And certainly the US is facing an uphill task, and this is all the clash of values which is seeking to lead a new multidimensional institutions, as China is now re-emerging. No doubt China has been counted, China has been looked at, and it is been pushed to the corner by USA time and again trying to, but China is re-emerging and trying to balance the US military superiority. Please do understand here, China is re-emerging to balance the US military superiority by technology and innovation and by trade. So these are the three areas which China is re-emerging, that is through technology, through innovation and through trade, and then trying to balance the US military superiority on China. And definitely it is a time of declining the global trust in regards to the free market liberalization, that is wherein US is certainly getting into the mode of protectionism, nationalism, or US, or else making it very clear that Trump is focusing on the American first. So it is a kind of protectionism approach and nationalism approach. But if you look at China is definitely projecting its re-emergence in regards to the trade, and it is saying that US, whatever it is going ahead with the protectionism or nationalism approach, is absolutely dead against it, is contrary towards the globalization. So definitely now China is re-emerging with the concept of globalization, making it very clear that it wanted to have a superiority over the entire globe through the economy or economic or through trade, and then it is now bringing in the concept of the globalization. So now it is certainly in regards to the protectionism versus globalization. So the China is re-emerging in regards to the technology, innovation and trade, and the West is now definitely experiencing a shock. So because the way the Asia has experienced the shock, or it has experienced the kind of superiority 200 years ago, now the West is experiencing a kind of shock, and it is also experiencing a kind of superiority by the Asian products or else Chinese products Chinese products in West or in Europe. So this is the superiority of Western civilization is under question now. Not only in regards to the trade, that is the Chinese products or the one which are in from which are being manufactured in Asia or else China, Chinese goods or Chinese products which are being totally dumped and they are having a major importance in the Western or European countries. And now along with that, now the West is experiencing the Western civilization under question also. So all these are the clash of values, and there is a chance that there is a global change which is emerging. And the new coronavirus pandemic has also accelerated the shift of global wealth to Asia, because no doubt China and India are certainly in regards to the providing the PPE kits and also all the one which are required for the COVID-19 pandemic, global pandemic situations, what we can make sure that we can handle the COVID-19 pandemic situation. And India is also in regards to the pharmaceuticals also, because India can be also called as the pharmaceutical hub of the world. So China is a manufacturing hub of the world, and then India is the pharmaceutical hub of the world. So definitely now the shift is, because of the coronavirus pandemic, the shift is towards the global wealth to Asia, suggesting inclusive global order on the principles drawn by ancient civilization. And then definitely the colonized Asia has played no role in shaping the industrial revolution. So in the industrial revolution, there was not much role played by Asia after the World War II. But now in regards to the digital revolution, it is certainly shaping different values. It is certainly shaping different values in regards to the entire world, and that is what the global change is, and that is what the require or the imperativeness on the importance of multilateralism in the Cold War. And certainly the clash that the multilateralism has now to resolve. There is certainly the clash of values in the multilateralism of the new Cold War, and that has to be resolved. And for that, now we will look at the non-cohesive form. So when we are focusing on the non-cohesive form, definitely India has this strategic issue. So what is the issue for India? That is that neither India wanted to get adjusted or adjustment towards the China's power, or it wanted to differ from US leadership. So it is at the almost at the new, or else a kind of non-alignment movement, but it is wanting a new principles in the international relations. It wanted a new change in the international relations. Thereby the multilateralism is definitely a new role which India can play in the multilateralism in the new Cold War times. And China has come up with their alternative governance mechanism to the US dominated, with International Monetary Fund, World Bank and World Trade Organizations which are dominated by US. And now the China is coming up with the non-cohesive form. It is not really trying to have a tit for tat with the US dominated institutions or the financial institutions like the IMF, World Bank and then World Trade Organization, but it is coming up with the non-cohesive form in regards to the encompassing, that is in regards to the Belt and Road Initiative. So this is the one which will link China with the rest of the world, and this is the form or the part of the non-cohesive form. So definitely the US, European Union and Japan are re-evaluating the globalization as it is pertaining to, or it thinks in regards to China, and the US is unabashedly thinking about America's first or protectionism approach or nations first. So definitely there are various forms or non-cohesive forms which have been initiated by various countries like China, European Union, US and Japan, and in this the world is questioning, that is in the entire non-cohesive forms taken up by various countries, the world is questioning both US and China's exceptionalism. So it is not globalization or protectionism or in regards to nationalism, but it is, the concept is exceptionalism. So this is a keyword. Exceptionalism is a concept wherein the entire world countries are questioning the exceptionalism of US and China, and definitely there is a global vacuum, and this global vacuum which will shift the relative power to its own potential. And this juncture, it provides India the capacity at this juncture wherein there is a global vacuum. There is certainly a global change which is happening and which is the entire world is experiencing it. It provides at this juncture, it provides India the capacity to articulate that we are carrying multilateralism as a NAM place. That is what it is, triumvirate. That is with 3. That is NAM, and we will go it with plus. That would be 3. That resonates with large parts of the world and brings in both BRICS, G7 under the ambit of NAM place. So what is the keyword here is that the multilateralism which India can articulate and then fill the global vacuum which is being created because of the global change, because of the exceptionalism concept of US and China. India can take up the NAM place and then bring in European Union and also Japan, BRICS and then G7 under its ambit and then come up with the NAM place. So this could be again another non-cohesive form where India can lead and then take the capacity to articulate that it is ready to go ahead with emerging as a global leader. And now what are the new templates for India? First, what we need to do is the Asian century should be defined. So it is the need of the hour for India to define Asian century. So then 21st century would be Asian century, but it would be in terms of peaceful coexistence and it will be in terms of freezing the post-colonial sovereignty. So it is in regards to the peaceful coexistence and then freezing. That means we are not taking up the colonial sovereignty. It would be post-colonial sovereignty. And the other one is the non-interference in the internal affairs. So definitely the template, what is required for India to make sure that the 21st century would be the Asian century. So non-interference would be another key lesson from the decline of US and the rise of China. Look at it. The US is declining and the China is rising. For that, now the non-interference is the new template for India which has to take place. And then the national security now relies on technological superiority like artificial intelligence, cyber and space. So this has to be taken into consideration. That is, technological superiority is a new template for India to make sure that we are also progressing and then we are also making sure that we are surging in artificial intelligence, cyber and space, and then definitely not spending or expensive capital equipment as India is going ahead in regards to the India's military, which is as acknowledged, but rather it has to rely on the national security which has to be linked with the technological superiority rather than militarily. That is through artificial intelligence, cyber and space. And instead of massive arms imports, we should use the savings to enhance endogenous, that is the internal capacity, and we have to mold the global digital economy. So we have to mold the global digital economy is the fifth template which we need to make sure that we have to start saving to enhance the internal capacity, and we have to make sure that we mold the global digital economy, which has to be a state centric, that is China, and then it has to be a firm centric, the way the US goes ahead, and now India has to come up with the public centric system, that is Indian system. So these are the templates which are very, very crucial that India has to follow at the time of re-emerging itself as a global leader. And the second one is it has to project itself as a global community, comparing its well-beingness, which is required as a new principles for trade. So definitely the trade has to get into the mode with the new principles which is for the well-being for the global community, by rejecting the 25-year-old rule creating intellectual property monopolies. So rather than this, we need to come up with the new principles for trade which will be well-being for the entire global community. And the global public goods now should include public health, crop research, renewable energy and batteries along with the AI. So all these have to be now part of the included in the global public goods, because this is the need of the hour for the entire global community, that is public health, crop research, for the food security, renewable energy, and then for batteries, and then the artificial intelligence in regards to the national security. And then we have to take the kind of scientific capacity is also under the platform that it is part of the foreign policy. And the third one which we need to focus in regards to the template is the ancient civilization values. So we need to get back, or we need to bring back the values which we had in the past, that is the ancient civilization values, and that will provide the conceptual underpinning in the sense supporting the restructuring of the economic order. So we need to restructure the economic order. We need to make sure that we restructure the societal behavior. Why it is important to restructure the economic order and the societal behavior is for equitable sustainable development for the entire world. And this equitable sustainable development, which is actually been emphasized or underscored by Africa, and which is Africa is seeking because of the climate change impacted world, wherein it wanted an equitable sustainable development, and that is, we need to get it as the last or the third template from the ancient civilization value for the economic order and societal behavior, which will be very useful for the equitable sustainable development for the entire global community. And now we will conclude it by making a statement that India can set the world response. So what is our world response now? Need to have a multilateralism in the Cold War. So when we need to have a multilateralism in the Cold War, India can set the world peace, and also using the opportunity to recover its global thought leadership. So it has to project, and it is now the time that it is a global leader. India is a global leader. So definitely the Cold War times has given a chance to India that it has the capacity for the global thought leadership. So we have discussed at length in regards to the multilateralism in the Cold War times. So I wish that this was an informative, knowledgeable session for the mains 2020, emphasizing on the mains 2020, that is multilateralism in the Cold War times and the role of India in reviving the multilateralism in the Cold War times. Please do understand, multilateralism in the Cold War times and the role and relevance of India in reviving the multilateralism, in the Cold War or new Cold War times. So it would be a very prospective and probable question for the mains 2020. So I would say a very big thank you and a good luck to you all. And before you sign off, do like the video, share the video, and subscribe the Synthesis IAS Academy, wherein the blend of ideas take place. So I would say that I would come up with the new issue based current affairs, which would be certainly helpful, informative and knowledgeable, and wherein you will have a comprehensive understanding of the topic, which will be macro and micro level strategy I would be covering up, and that will be very useful for the mains as well as prelims examinations. So thank you very much, and then I would come up with the new issue based current affairs.